Ravens with a big victory on Sunday, 13-7 over the Buffalo Bills. And Orioles on the mind all week long now as they take off for a rather important set at Fenway Park. Here to talk all things Orioles baseball after a couple of nice series in Tampa and, of course, this weekend in Detroit, getting some good pitching in September, Alan McCallum, and we all know that's the key, right?
That's certainly one of the major ones, yeah. I mean, timely hitting will go a long way as well. 6-3 in a couple of huge series, and as we said last week, every series is big at this point, and they're just coming off the biggest series of the year, went against the Tigers, trying to solidify their wild card slot, and now they go up against the Red Sox in hopes of reclaiming first place from them and trying to hold on to that. So there are no easy ones left. There are no breathers. It's hard to sweep every team, and you look at 6-3, given where they were, and think, they're holding their own. They're still in the postseason race. They've tied for the number one wild card spot. Of all the games in the past week, I'd say you look at the last game in Tampa where they had a lead and they gave it up. It's probably the one that stings the most. But otherwise, I mean, it's hard to argue with what they've done so far, given in the last couple of weeks, given where they were and the challenges they were facing.
Well, I mean, the only losses they really had on the road have been one-run losses where it really was the bullpen, which that's kind of the shocking part, giving up late runs that cost them games. I know Brad Brock has, worn the black hat earlier in the week as well. But the starting pitching, I mean, if we're going to bitch about things, we should be given praise when, Tillman now back, looking like Tillman, at least for 105 pitches on Sunday. Jimenez finally earning his money. I feel pretty good when Bundy and Gosman take the ball. Now, got to do something about Wade Miley, and obviously to start the series kind of in over their heads.
I'm a little surprised that he's slated to pitch against the Red Sox, quite frankly, given that I could certainly see that they had to keep him in place, assuming that Tillman, with the uncertainty of what Tillman was going to do. If you can look at the start that he had on Sunday and say the odds are pretty good that he's healthy and that he's going to be okay in the rotation, you would think that you'd want to throw the best rotation that you can against the team you're trying to catch. So I'm a little surprised about that. But other than that, I mean, you certainly can argue with what Ubaldo's done. Gosman has certainly stepped up here in the last 6 weeks as a staff ace in lieu of Tillman's either time in the DL or slowing pace in the second half.
You don't need to be an ace. You just need to be an ace this week.
Absolutely. You need to be – momentum is as strong as tomorrow's starting pitcher. You need someone who's going to be able to take the ball and give you a chance to win tomorrow as well as today. So, they have to have 5 guys to pitch. I guess theoretically they could go with 6, but I don't know if Bundy is sort of a box of chocolates right now. I certainly would have more confidence in him taking the mound than Wade Miley, and that's sort of sad to say, but true. So, I mean, if you're looking for an odd man out, he'd be my choice given right now. That Ubaldo's pitching really well, that Gosman is carrying his own. Tillman looks to be healthy, and, Gallardo is certainly not what he once was, but I would trust that he has a better chance of having a decent outing as opposed to Wade Miley each time he goes out.
He is Alan McCallum, our longtime Oriole historian and longtime blogger and coverer of all things Orioles, now into a pennant race on a Sunday afternoon where, Alan, I get a feeling not a lot of people were watching the game. I mean, we were scoreboard watching at a Ravens game, which is unto itself very unique and rare. You know what I mean? I don't, I'm not being a dick. I mean, I'm just being honest. It's 1998. There have been very few times I've sat at a Ravens game wondering what the Orioles score was with any purpose. You know what I mean? Like, even in 14, they had kind of run away, and they were hiding by now by the time the Ravens began. So this whole notion that this many teams are involved, and, before I even talk about the Orioles or the Red Sox, and we will, I want to talk about the totality of this whole thing, where there are now literally 10 baseball teams fighting for 5 spots. There really are 8 different baseball teams fighting for 3 spots, really, because Cleveland and Texas are in the tournament, right? So, the rest of this mess, Seattle hasn't lost in a week, Kansas City's not going away. Certainly the Yankees aren't going away. They're now a part of this scoreboard watching we're doing. And on the back end of Detroit over the weekend, Detroit might have the easiest schedule out of all the teams left.
So if you take out the division leaders right now, then you're right. There's 7 teams that are basically battling for 2 wild card spots. And the truth is that while you look at Baltimore, Toronto, and maybe even New York, and say, those might be the 3 best teams of the 7. You're right. The fact that they have to battle each other, beat up on each other, while Detroit and some of the other clubs are taking on some lesser competition. Certainly Detroit, I think, has Minnesota.
7 times they have Minnesota,
in Atlanta. Down the stretch here, I mean, it could be the war of attrition just through the fact that they're playing teams that are struggling. And this is a club that's largely been to the postseason before, so it's not like they don't have the experience of going down the stretch in September, and they just have easier competition to battle. So the unbalanced schedule and the way the schedule rolls out could really be in favor of teams like Detroit when it's all said and done. And I find it hard to believe that 2 of the Eastern teams, that both Eastern teams, whether it be Baltimore, Toronto, Boston, even New York, would fall out of it. But it wouldn't surprise me if one of those spots in the wild card position is taken up by a team like Detroit.
Well, I mean, they're all looking bunched up and like they're coming to get each other. And certainly for the Orioles and the Red Sox, they both can't make up ground here this week when they start playing each other regularly. I can't think of a Monday night in September where there's been more gusto for a series than Orioles and Red Sox at this point, battling for first place. I mean, the Orioles have played the Red Sox about 1 billion times in my lifetime. I can't think of, literally, I mean, even go back to like 79 with Jim Rice and stuff. I don't remember the Orioles and the Red Sox duking it in this way in September at Fenway Park for all the marbles. There's pretty good stuff going on right now, Al. This is heady stuff.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, one team or the other through the years, I think you're right, has largely played the role of spoiler while the other team was sort of booking its tickets to the playoffs. It probably hasn't happened very often. I think in 12 and 14, the Red Sox were down and won the World Series one of the years the Orioles didn't go to the postseason in the last 4. So,
well, I remember in 2011, the greatest thing we had this century was wrecking the Red Sox season one night, right?
The curse of Robert Andino. The Red Sox fans remember it well, and players had to leave Boston, and managers and management lost their jobs or left. The ramifications of what happened in that last week against the Orioles for Boston was pretty significant, and changed the course of the Red Sox and the Cubs, for that matter, and maybe some people will even say the Cleveland Indians when it's all said and done, for dramatically. Theo Epstein going to take the reins in Chicago, and what he's done is put that team in heights the likes of which they have not seen in almost 100 years. And the Indians, after a long battle back to respectability, have done that. So there are a lot of ramifications that came from Robert Andino getting that last base hit to end the season for the Orioles in 2011. Certainly, the Orioles having something to play for down the stretch in 11, let's just say this probably gave some of those players a taste of what it would feel like to have games mean something in that period of time. And maybe that's the kind of thing that propelled them into the postseason in 2012.
He is Alan McCallum, our longtime Oriole historian. All right, so for where they are right now, and certainly a week ago when we last got together, the Tampa trip, Detroit, their propensity for stubbing their toe on the road, I think our grave concern about their starting pitching and Noah O'Day and where Tillman is. I must say, Alan, as we sit here now that football is kicked off and the Ravens are 1-0, I don't want to say I'm shocked that the Orioles are in this. I'm shocked that they are sort of surging in some way here, kind of quietly over the last 10 days.
So 2 weeks ago, I told you that it would not surprise me if the Orioles didn't make the postseason. And you asked me what the formula would be to get them there. And I told you that I felt like Tillman coming back healthy, Bundy, who had started to slow down a little bit, sort of returning to form. And maybe the most important piece of it was the manipulation of the additional players they could add in from the 40-man roster in September. And along with the additional pitching that they've brought in to help spell some of the key guys in the bullpen when the team is up or down significantly one way or the other, that they got Bourne and Stubbs. I mean, Michael Bourne has certainly paid dividends already. And as I said to you, I thought the way Buck handles, as much as he complains about not wanting to have it, he manipulates the extra players he has as well as anybody. And that helps rest some players in September, brings a dynamic that they do not have at any other time of the season, which is speed, and improves the defense out in the outfield, at least at the end of the game, if not throughout it, and allows the team to be a little bit more dynamic and have a few more options. And I think that makes a significant difference. Has it been the end all and be all? No, but I think it's been an X factor, and you can see some of the contributions that some of these players have had along the way here over the last couple of weeks.
It's not that they're winning; it's the way they're winning, and Ubaldo Jimenez being in the middle of it. That it can't be anything but shocking to most of us, right?
I mean, certainly the starting pitching playing a significant part right now is I would say, of a surprise.
Well, it has to be that way, right? I mean, I don't really believe anybody thought that they could go out there and give up 5, 6, 7 runs every night, and at this point in the season, be winning consistently doing that. I mean, if you go back to 12 and 14, especially 14, that was all about the starting pitching the last 90 days of that season, and that's why they ran away. And I would tell you over the last 3 weeks, the pitching has been better than any of us could have predicted it to be. I mean, going back to Bundy taking the ball because, quite frankly, they had no one else to give it to, right?
Gausman, Ubaldo, and Bundy have been the true tests of what have kept them in the race so far in the second half of the season. Particularly in the last 6 weeks, they've made a significant difference. There were certainly periods of time there in late August where the offense was struggling and the pitching was better than we expected, that they lost some games. But right now they're scoring enough runs to support a starting pitching staff that is better than we could have hoped for at this point. And quite frankly, the bullpen, as you said, has stubbed its toe here a little bit. Brad Brock is not the same pitcher he was in the first half of the season. And Givens is good, but he's not Darren O'Day. They're missing Darren O'Day. But when it's all said and done, the one key piece that really holds all of this together is that when they have a lead in the ninth inning, they're going to win. And Zach Britton certainly deservedly is within the discussion of the Cy Young.
And by the way, we were discussing in the Ravens media lounge that, like, how could he go the whole year? You know what I mean? Like, you're almost on borrowed time, right? Like, you feel that way. I know Jim Johnson. Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. I just hope it's – I don't want to say I hope it's in October because that would mean we got to October, right? But at some point, he's gonna blow one. He just is, right?
You would certainly think so.
It's baseball. I mean, come on.
Right now, he's having arguably one of the top 5 greatest short reliever seasons we've ever seen.
Well, you have to go back to, I think of Eckersley. I mean, and I saw them all. Quisenberry, Suter, all the good years, the Rivera years. I mean, hell, my boy out in San Diego, Trevor Hoffman had some years. I mean, there's some great years, and I'm with you with the Britton thing. But when I think of Dennis Eckersley just never walking anyone.
There are people. I mean, right now you're talking about him possibly having one of the lowest ERAs in the history of the sport for a short reliever. I mean, that speaks for
itself, right?
I mean, even when Eckersley and Rivera were the best in the game, they blew a save. Even if it was 1 or 2, they blew a save through the course of the season. Sometimes you just have bad days. I remember in '97 when Randy Myers was stellar. I was in Camden Yards the day he gave up the home run to the Oakland A's to blow the one save he blew all year. I mean,
the Eckersley 90 season, he pitched 61 times, 73 innings, 41 hits. I want to make sure I get the stat right here because he gave up 2 home runs that year, and he walked 4 people in 73 innings. He had 4 walks in 73 innings.
And Zach's not,
you're going to laugh at that.
I mean, Zach's not going to be that pitcher because he throws a ball that often doesn't end up in the strike zone. It just looks like it's going there, and then it disappears. I mean, he's going to walk guys now and then, but he has such sink on the ball. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, or often it doesn't matter because he's hitting the next guy's going to hit you, 6-4-3 or 4-6-3 double play. But what he's doing is almost unprecedented. And hey, let's hope he stays on on the cloud for a long time because
He's at 56 innings, 1 home run, 17 walks, 29 hits. So from a base runners, 56 innings, he has had 46 base runners. Eckersley in 1990 had 73 innings and 45 base runners.
I mean, they're just numbers that blow
it's
your
like
mind.
Wiffle ball numbers, man.
Dennis Eckersley's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's what you need to know. So, Britton has a long way to go before we start talking about that. And as I have said to you on several occasions, I think he would be their best starter if he were in the rotation because he didn't actually fail as a starter. He got hurt and didn't have a chance to continue his.
Yeah, you hate him as a closer, right? I mean, you think it's a waste.
I don't hate it. He's the best closer in the game, but I think that it is. I think they could be getting a lot. I think he could be more useful to this club as a starter on a club that gave away Jake Arrieta, gave away Miguel Gonzalez, and I think wasting what I think could be an incredibly strong arm in the rotation. But I mean, it's not like he's not succeeding as a closer. He's the best in the game right now. So I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I just see the other side of it given the issues with talent evaluation that the Orioles have had. So, but MVP, Cy Young, he's certainly in the discussion for both, and certainly one of the most important cogs in what has kept the Orioles in this playoff run through the entire season. When the offense didn't work, when the starting pitching didn't work, when J.J. Hardy was out and the infield defense, which is the best in the game, wasn't quite as good, when balls were dropped in the outfield, when they were striking out way too much and couldn't score any runs, Zach Britton has been in the ninth inning to close the game and done it in a perfect fashion. So, I mean, how do you say that he hasn't been worthy of all the accolades that he's getting right now?
He is Alan McCallum. He is our Orioles historian. You can follow him, Alan at WNST.net. Eventually, he'll get E.M. Spencer back together. And certainly for the Orioles, putting the band back together on the offensive side, there have been different stars. I mean, you pointed out Bourne. At some point said Bourne hit a 2-run home run at the Ravens game on Sunday. I'm like, oh, yeah, he plays on the Orioles. Yeah, he was in the game the other night. They scored all the runs in bunches, a couple in Tampa, and certainly Saturday night, the floodgates kind of opened up. They are still capable of putting 11 up on any given night, but it doesn't feel like they've been smacking the cover off the ball. I think we sit here and brag about the pitching because I think we all realize that, when you're only giving up 2-3 runs a night, you're going to win a lot of ball games.
With the exception of a game in one of the games, their average as runners in scoring position through this sort of re-solidified their place in the postseason run has been awful. I mean, it's just been awful. They continue to hit runs. That's what they've done. His second big home run of the week in Detroit on Sunday, and he's certainly filled a nice role for them here. But the truth is that they're hitting with runners in scoring position, with the exception of one or two games the last couple of weeks, has really been awful. And I'm certainly not going to look at you and say, well, they can't keep hitting home runs, Nestor, because that's what they do. But it's hard to imagine them getting to the World Series doing that when, as we've talked about, you might have 12 guys on your staff, but you're really throwing your best 8. Or, as you're coming down the stretch here, you're all these clubs are going to jettison their dead weight. And if a guy doesn't have it in the first 2 innings, they're going to run their bullpen through because they have 3 or 4 other guys that they can turn to the next day because of the expanded roster. It's hard to imagine that they can stay through this if they don't have better bats. Now, they ran up Justin Verlander's pitch count pretty decently on Sunday, which is something we haven't seen them do since late May, early June of this season. So maybe it has been impressed upon them that they need to get back into that mode and that focus. It's not that they're not capable of doing it. The long season, it's hard to maintain that kind of focus. These guys play every day. Machado, Scope. The only days Adam Jones and Chris Davis get off is when they're hurt. So I mean, they're playing these guys every day. There's no chance for rest. So I mean, mentally and physically, the club is exhausted. So I understand that, but I mean, they consistently their at bats aren't strong enough, and they need to really bear down and focus here for the last couple weeks.
Yeah, this would be a really good time to play their best baseball, and they're going to need that. Price, Pomeranz, Porcello, Miley, Bundy, and Gosman, and then, of course, the Tampa Bay Rays come to town beginning on the weekend, and then there will be no rest. They have a makeup as well on a Thursday, and so they're going to play 4 games here this weekend as well. We know the crowds have been down. I will be blogging about the crowds this week, Alan, which I'm sure everyone will just love that part, but I think that is a part of this story. And, part of the story now, I think, is Detroit was kind of electric after Tampa was dead. I have a feeling up in Boston, it's going to be a hornet's nest up there. It's going to feel like playoff baseball the next couple of days, because it is.
I think it's felt, certainly on the road, I think it's felt like baseball, the playoff baseball already. Detroit, the fans of Detroit certainly knew what they had at stake. Probably didn't feel like it right away on Saturday because the Orioles jumped out on them. But I think that everywhere people understand, baseball fans, let's put it that way, understand what's at stake for these clubs. And it's pretty much everywhere. With the exception of Tampa, everywhere the Orioles are heading or have been over the last couple of weeks, the teams that they're playing is close enough in the race that it should matter. You want to say it doesn't feel like that in Baltimore because the fans haven't shown up? That's certainly a worthy argument. But everywhere else, certainly in Boston, I think probably in New York, in Toronto, I think those crowds we saw last year, I think those clubs are going to be, those fans are going to be out for blood. So, I think the Orioles feed off of that. A team captained in spirit anyway by Adam Jones sort of thrives on the naysayers in the crowd. So, that kind of energy, I think, fuels the teams. I don't actually think that's
even the media they don't let in seems to fuel Adam Jones, which is fine. That's all well and good. For the rest of these teams chasing at this point, I can only marvel that the Yankees are making themselves very much a factor in this thing. And, I think Houston's a factor. Seattle hasn't lost. But the Yankees, to me, this is more shocking than any of the rest of them. And probably given the pedigree there, I probably shouldn't be shocked that they didn't just go into the tank and play .350 ball after they traded off a couple of their star players.
You say the term star players, but there was star players from a decade ago. This was a team that was bogged down with older players and bad contracts, and they still have some of them. But you have guys on the club right now that the veterans like Gardner and Ellsbury are playing the way they always play, and they've always been spark plugs. They just didn't have enough guys sort of around them to cash in. You don't have A-Rod bogging down the middle of the lineup. Teixeira's got a little more help around him, and I think he, given that this is the end of his career, he's already announced that he's probably, sort of throwing all he's got into it, much like Big Papi in Boston. And for the rest, you see a guy in Gary Sanchez who's slowed down a little bit here in the last couple of weeks, but certainly put on a surge that helped ignite the Yankees in the middle of their lineup. And the rest of the young guys are, they're mixing and matching them in a way that they're getting the most they can out of a couple of guys that the league doesn't really know yet, and can disguise it a little bit. I think Girardi's a good manager and knows how to do those kinds of things. I don't think this team is proven to the extent that they're going to go to the post, they're going to be in it all year next year. But when you've got some unknown commodities with some talent, and I think some of the players that the Yankees are throwing out there right now have that. But until the league has a chance to figure them out and sort of get together and decide how to pitch to them, there are certainly opportunities for those young guys to play on almost pure adrenaline and talent alone. And that's what we're seeing right now in New York. And they always had a decent pitching staff. I think that there were some injuries and some things that they had to overcome. But that this is a club that always had a little bit of talent. They weren't scoring any runs for those pitchers. And again, right now they're in a situation where with an expanded roster, they can sort of mix and match. So I think a lot of clubs are benefiting from that. And if you have a decently stacked farm system, which the Yankees now have, and they didn't have quite as much previously, then you can take advantage of that. And I think that's where they are right now.
Certainly for the Orioles, having 7 games left with the Red Sox, and this is the way the schedule makers would want it to work out, despite the Arizona thing later on in the month, which, based on the way they're playing, it's a pretty nice time to be playing Arizona if you're the Orioles. But, I don't know that any one of these matters a lot, but to get some sort of advantage in Boston, if they could somehow win 2 out of these 3, it would certainly paint them in a far better position to be coming home playing a lot of baseball games over the next 2 weeks.
Nestor, all the, flyers have been given out the Orioles need to win. They need to win, period, right now. I mean, I think a lot of us are sort of in agreement. 90 wins was sort of the high watermark to get into the postseason. Maybe not to win the division, but to get into the postseason. And all the good hustle out there games are gone. They can't afford to blow games late, early, or otherwise. Every game they can win, they need to do right now. So again, this series against Boston is just the latest big series they have, because every series at this point is of huge importance to them. They can't afford to let this thing go. They are in the playoffs right now, fighting for their lives, along with the Red Sox and the Blue Jays and the Yankees and the Tigers and the other clubs.
I don't think there couldn't be any more teams in this race, right? I mean, like, literally, if you're scoreboard watching and you're not watching Kansas City and you're not watching Houston and Seattle, you're really doing yourself a disservice. I mean, 4 weeks ago it was all about Boston and Toronto. Now, it's all about all of them, quite frankly, other than Cleveland and Texas.
I think mathematically, every team would have to be basically at 500 to get any more teams in it. For the math to work out, there has to be some teams that are just bad, so that there are enough teams, 7 teams, high enough over 500 to be in the discussion. So, if you're not absolutely right, you're probably pretty close in that there couldn't be any other teams. The bottom line is that aside from Tampa and Arizona, every other team that they're facing right now has something really serious to play for. And the teams that don't have anything to play for are often the most dangerous, because the only thing they have to do for the rest of the season is spoil your chance. So there are no free passes anymore. They've had those over the course of the season, and now they need to play their best baseball, as we said.
Fenway Park is the scene for all of you Ravens fans. Put the orange on and buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Miley and Price, Bundy and Pomerantz, Gosman and Porcello. Then, of course, the Orioles return home on Thursday. Tampa, Boston, and then Arizona in town for a chunky little, that's 4 and 4 and 3, 11-game homestand in the middle of the month. I will be writing a very lengthy blog about Orioles attendance issues. And by the way, we are 10 days out now on the 10th anniversary of Free the Birds, Alan. So, start churning and working on that, because we will be discussing that sometime right around the end of that Boston series by the middle of next week. He is Alan at WNST.net, and our longtime Oriole historian and blogger, Alan McCallum. You can find me out on the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. We also stream now live on Facebook, as well as on our WNSTV YouTube channel. But I'm on Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those good places, including nasty at WNST.net. Our morning newspaper ships at 7 a.m. each and every morning digitally to your email inbox. That's free of charge and powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And last but never ever least, if there's breaking news, a lot of it on Sundays with injury reports, and throughout the week, if the Orioles or the Ravens make any moves, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home, getting you ready for the Jets and the Bills. We're still talking about the Bills and the 13-7 victory over Buffalo on Sunday as we prepare for the Cleveland Browns this week. Got a lot of great radio this week, got a lot of great stuff going on. We're going to be swabbing Eric Weddle next week for the Bone Marrow Registry, doing an event. We'll be telling you more about that at Adams Jeep. As the week goes on, we'll be doing more swabbings throughout the fall. And, of course, the guy who saved my wife's life, Niels, will be coming to town in November, and we're throwing a party November 12th, so we'd ask you to hold that as well. So lots of great stuff going on around here. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.